The chamber stretched vast and circular, with walls that seemed to pulse with a soft blue light. Delegates from 100 different worlds sat in their designated sections, some breathing oxygen, others suspended in liquid tanks, and a few existing as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. Ambassador Hyunsu adjusted his translator earpiece and tried not to feel overwhelmed by the sheer diversity of life forms surrounding him. He had been called to attend this emergency session of the Galactic Council, though nobody had told him why. Earth had been a member of the galactic community for only 70 years, still considered newcomers by species that measured their histories in millennia. Hansu had served as Earth's primary diplomat for 5 years now, and he thought he understood the political landscape fairly well. Today, however, something felt different. The air carried a tension he could not quite name. The session began when Prime Counselor Drath rose from his seat. Drath belonged to a species that resembled massive beetles, with a carapace that shifted colors based on his emotional state. Right now, it showed deep purple mixed with streaks of orange. Concern and determination, if Hyunsu remembered his xenobiology lessons correctly. "We gather today to address a matter of extreme importance," Drath announced. His voice amplified through the chamber's acoustic systems. "A pattern has emerged that threatens the stability of our peaceful coexistence. Council historian Velther will present the evidence." A being that looked like living crystal floated to the center of the chamber. Velther had existed for over 3,000 years and had witnessed more wars than any other counselor. When Velther spoke, even the most arrogant delegates listened. "Esteemed members," Velther began, "I have compiled data from the past century regarding military conflicts across our territories. Specifically, conflicts that involved the species known as humans." The crystal being's form flickered, projecting holographic images into the air above the assembled delegates. Hyunsu leaned forward, suddenly very interested. What could this possibly be about? Humans had participated in exactly 3 minor conflicts since joining the galactic community, always as peacekeepers or mediators. The first hologram showed a battle scene. 60 years ago, Velther continued, the Kralaxian Empire and the Dostrian Coalition engaged in what was projected to be a 15-year war over resource rights in the Kavik sector. Both sides possessed roughly equal military strength. The Kralaxians, facing early losses, hired a small contingent of human military advisors. 200 humans, to be precise. The hologram shifted, showing tactical displays and battle formations. The war ended in 3 weeks. Not 3 years? 3 weeks. The Dostrian coalition surrendered after suffering defeats so comprehensive that their military doctrine had to be completely rebuilt. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Hansu felt his stomach tighten. He remembered that conflict. Earth had sent retired military personnel as private contractors. The Kralaxians had paid well, and Earth's government had seen no reason to refuse. Another hologram appeared. 40 years ago, the Vexnary Confederation faced a pirate uprising that had persisted for 2 decades. Local security forces could not contain the problem. The Confederation hired 150 human security specialists. The pirate networks were eliminated in 6 months. Not suppressed, eliminated. More images followed. Each one showed a conflict that had been predicted to last years but ended in months after human involvement. Each one demonstrated tactical innovations that the galaxy had never seen before. Flanking maneuvers that seemed impossible. Psychological warfare that broke enemy morale before battles even began. Supply line interdictions that starved opposing forces without a single shot fired. "The pattern is clear," Velther stated, the crystal form pulsing with emphasis. "Humans possess an extraordinary aptitude for warfare. Their species has engaged in continuous military conflict for their entire recorded history. They have refined the art of war to a degree that no other known species has achieved." A delegate from the Morvith Collective stood up. He was a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms. "Surely you exaggerate, historian. No species can be that effective at war. The humans are simply lucky, or perhaps their opponents were weak." Velther's crystalline form brightened, which Hyansu had learned meant the ancient being was amused. "Ambassador, would you like to see the human military doctrine manual that we acquired? It is 14,000 pages long. It covers everything from individual combat to planetary invasion strategies. They have a philosophical text called The Art of War that is over 2,500 years old. They study warfare the way we study mathematics." The chamber fell silent. 14,000 pages. Hyansu had never actually read the complete military doctrine himself. He had been a soldier once, yes, but only infantry. He knew his small part, not the whole picture. Drath spoke again. "We do not say this to insult humanity. Ambassador Hyansu, please understand. We have observed that humans are also capable of great compassion, creativity, and peaceful cooperation. But your species has one quality that makes you unique and dangerous. You never stop improving at war. Every conflict teaches you lessons. Every defeat makes you stronger. Every victory is analyzed for flaws." Another counselor, this one resembling a floating jellyfish, added, "Your people have a saying, do they not? If you want peace, prepare for war. Most species prepare for war by building bigger weapons. Humans prepare for war by becoming better at using any weapon, even their bare hands." Hyansu wanted to defend his species, but the evidence hung in the air around him. He thought about human history. The endless wars. The constant innovations in tactics and strategy. The way humanity had turned warfare into a science and then into an art form. They had nuclear weapons before they had stable governments. They had reached their own moon while still fighting wars on their home planet. "This is why," Drath continued. "The Council proposes Directive 447, effective immediately. It will be prohibited for any member species to recruit, hire, or in any way involve humans in military conflicts. The penalty for violation will be immediate suspension from the Council and economic sanctions." "You are banning humans from military service?" Hyansu asked, finally finding his voice. "No," Veltha replied gently. "We are banning other species from recruiting you. What you do among yourselves is your own matter. But we have seen what happens when humans are introduced into our conflicts. You do not simply fight. You revolutionize. You transform. You turn small wars into catastrophes for whoever opposes you, and you do it with a casualness that frightens us." The vote was called. Of the 97 voting members present, 94 voted in favor of Directive 447. Only Earth and 2 of its close allies voted against it. As the session concluded, Hyansu sat in stunned silence. His species had just been labeled too dangerous to fight other people's wars. The galaxy feared humanity's capacity for violence, so much that they had created a law to contain it. Walking back to his ship later that day, Hyansu passed a group of young human officers who were laughing and joking, completely unaware of what had just happened. They looked so normal, so harmless, but the galaxy had seen something in humanity that even humans themselves did not fully recognize. They had looked at human history and seen not just warriors, but the most effective warriors the galaxy had ever encountered. The warning had been issued. Do not involve humans in your wars. Hyansu could only hope that everyone would listen. 6 months had passed since Directive 447 became law. Most of the galaxy seemed content to accept it and move on. But in the Outer Rim territories where Council authority grew weak and wars burned hot, desperation made people take terrible risks. Empress Kira stood in her war room, staring at the holographic display that showed her empire dying. Red markers indicated worlds already lost to the Morvith Collective. Yellow markers showed worlds currently under siege. In just 3 years, the Morveth had conquered 40% of Threxion space. Military analysts predicted total collapse within 18 months. She was only 32 years old. Too young to watch her civilization die. Too proud to surrender without trying everything possible. "Your Majesty," her intelligence director said quietly, "the package from Earth has arrived. It came through unofficial channels, as you requested." Kira took the data chip with trembling fingers. She had sent a secret message to Earth 3 months ago, offering them things the Council would never approve. Advanced jump gate technology, exclusive trade rights, access to Threxian medical research that could extend human lifespans by decades. All she wanted in return was help. Military advisors, they had called it in the message. Just advisors. She knew it violated Directive 447. She knew the penalties. But what did galactic law matter if her species went extinct? The Terran response had been surprisingly quick. They would send a small team, 500 personnel. They promised nothing except that they would assess the situation and provide recommendations. The cost was steep, but Kira had already transferred the payment. Captain Jiwan arrived on a cold morning, her transport ship touching down at the Imperial military base with minimal ceremony. She was shorter than Kira expected, with dark hair pulled back in a practical style and eyes that seemed to constantly evaluate everything around her. She wore a simple gray uniform with minimal decoration. "Your Majesty," Jiwan said, bowing slightly. Her translator rendered the words in perfect Threxian. "Thank you for the invitation. My team and I are ready to begin our assessment." Kira led her to the war room, where Threxian generals waited with barely concealed skepticism. These were proud military officers who had spent their lives studying warfare according to Threxian traditions. The idea that aliens could help them was insulting to most of them. G1 studied the holographic displays for a long time without speaking. Then she asked a simple question. "What is your current military doctrine?" General Vex, the oldest and most traditional of Kira's commanders, bristled. "We follow the way of honor. We meet our enemies in open battle. We fight with courage and die with dignity if necessary." "I see," Jiwan said. "And how is that working for you?" The silence in the room was deadly. Several generals looked ready to throw the human out physically. G1 continued, her voice calm but firm. "Your enemy has twice your numbers. They have better logistics. Their weapons are roughly equal to yours. You keep meeting them in open battle, and you keep losing. You are dying with honor, yes, but you are still dying. And what would you have us do?" Vex demanded. "Fight without honor? Become cowards?" "I would have you win," Jiwan replied simply. "Honor means nothing if your species is extinct. Your Empress called us because she understands this. Now I need to know if you understand it too." Kira watched the exchange with her breath held. This could go very wrong very quickly. But then something unexpected happened. General Vex, who had fought in 73 battles and lost family in this war, slowly nodded. "Tell us what to do," he said quietly, over the next 2 weeks. Jiwan and her team conducted a complete analysis of Threxian military capabilities. They watched training exercises. They reviewed battle recordings. They studied Morvith tactics and strategies. And what they found horrified them. Lieutenant Taiyang, Jiwan's second in command, put it bluntly in a private meeting. "Captain, they are fighting a war from 1,000 years ago. They line up their forces and charge at each other. They ignore terrain advantages. They never use deception or misdirection. It is like watching children play at war." "They have courage," Jiwan acknowledged. "I have seen the recordings. They do not run. They do not surrender easily. That is something we can work with. But can we teach them fast enough?" Taeyang asked. "The Morvath will launch their next major offensive in 2 months. Intelligence says they are preparing to strike at 3 core worlds simultaneously." Yuan smiled then. A cold expression that made Taiyang remember why she was called the Ice Captain back on Earth. "Then we have 2 months to teach them how humans fight. Wake up the tactical instructors. Full training schedule, around the clock. The Threxians want to survive? We will show them how." The training began the next day. Human instructors spread out across Threxian military bases, teaching concepts that seemed bizarre to their students. They taught small unit tactics, guerrilla warfare, ambush strategies, how to retreat without breaking morale, how to use terrain to multiply your effective force, how to make the enemy think you were in 3 places at once. But most importantly, They taught the Threxians something their culture had never valued before: deception. War is not about honor, Jiwan told a room full of Threxian officers during one training session. War is about winning with minimum casualties to your own side. If you can win without fighting a single battle, that is the best victory. If you must fight, make the enemy fight on your terms, not theirs. She showed them recordings from human military history. The Trojan Horse, the Battle of Cannae, D-Day operations that succeeded through misdirection, surprise, and superior planning. The Threxians struggled with these concepts. Their entire culture valued direct confrontation. Deception felt wrong to them. But Empress Kira herself attended the sessions. And when her soldiers saw their empress learning these new ways, they committed themselves to the training. Meanwhile, in a distant star system, the Galactic Council's monitoring division flagged an anomaly. Human transport ships had been detected in Threxian space. The report landed on Ambassador Hyensu's desk within hours. He read it 3 times, hoping he was misunderstanding. Then he sent an encrypted message to Earth Command. "Please tell me we did not just violate Directive 447. The response came quickly. Officially, Captain G1 and her team are on authorized leave. What they do with their personal time is not Earth's responsibility. Unofficially, the Threxians paid very well, and we acquired technology that will advance our jump drive capabilities by decades." Hyensu put his head in his hands. This was exactly what the Council had feared. Humans could not resist a good fight, and other species could not resist hiring them. Back on Threxia, the 2 months of training reached their conclusion. The Morvath offensive was coming. Intelligence confirmed it. 3 fleets, targeting 3 core worlds. The Morvath General Cross had publicly announced that this would be the final campaign of the war. In her command center, Jiwan studied the tactical displays with Empress Kira and the Threxian generals. "They expect you to defend each world with everything you have," she said. "They expect you to fight the way you have always fought. So we will do something different." She outlined Operation Thunderstrike. It was complex, multi-layered, and completely contrary to Threxian military tradition. It required coordination between forces that had never worked together before. It demanded that Threxian soldiers do things they had been taught were dishonorable. General Vex listened to the entire plan, then looked at Jiwan with something like respect in his eyes. "If this works, you will have saved our empire. If it fails, we will all die together." "It will work," Jiwan said with absolute confidence. "The Morvath think they know how you fight. But you are not fighting like Threxians anymore. For the next few weeks you fight like humans. And humans always win." The Morvath fleet began its approach. General Cross watched the tactical displays from his command ship with satisfaction. Soon, the Threxian Empire would fall, and he would be remembered as the conqueror who ended a war that had lasted too long. He had no idea what was waiting for him. General Cross stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Victory, watching 3 separate holographic displays showing his 3 attack fleets. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. His forces outnumbered the Threxian defenders at each target world by at least 2 to 1. Victory was not just likely, it was inevitable. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from 2 of the target worlds." "They are asking for terms?" Cross allowed himself a small smile. The Threxians were finally accepting reality. "Ignore them. We attack as scheduled. I want complete victory, not negotiated peace." He had no way of knowing that those surrender offers were the first move in a game. He did not know he was playing on the planet Threxia Prime. Captain Jiwan watched the same tactical displays from the Imperial Command Center. "They took the bait," she said calmly. "All 3 fleets are committed to their original targets. Lieutenant Taeyang, you are authorized to begin Phase 1. Thousands of light years away. On the Morvath border world of Kelnar, Lieutenant Taeyang and a team of 30 human special operations soldiers moved through the shadows. They had infiltrated the planet 2 weeks earlier disguised as merchants. Now they stood outside the planet's main communications hub. "Remember," Taeyang whispered to her team, "we are not here to kill anyone. We are here to send a message. The operation took exactly 12 minutes. The team breached the facility, overwhelmed the guards with non-lethal weapons, and Taiyang uploaded a virus into the Morvith military communication network. Then they disappeared back into the night. The virus was a masterpiece of human cyber warfare. It did not destroy anything. It did not shut systems down. Instead, it did something far more insidious. It introduced tiny delays and occasional errors into communications. Orders arrived 3 seconds late. Coordinates were off by small margins. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing obvious. Just enough to create confusion. Back at his fleet command, General Cross began receiving reports that made no sense. A supply convoy was 3 hours behind schedule. 2 patrol groups reported their assigned sectors incorrectly. Minor problems, easily fixed, but annoying. What is wrong with our communication systems? He demanded. We are checking, sir, his technical officer replied. There seems to be some interference, but we cannot locate the source. Cross dismissed it as a technical glitch. He had larger concerns. His first fleet was entering orbit around Threxia Prime, ready to begin the bombardment that would force surrender. Then everything went wrong at once. The Threxian defense fleet, which his scouts had reported would defend the planet in traditional formation, was not where it should be. Instead of meeting his ships head-on in open space, the Threxian vessels had positioned themselves within the planet's gravity well, using the orbital stations as cover. What are they doing? Cross muttered. This is not how they fight. From the command center, Jiwan smiled. They are learning. Threxian forces execute Phase 2. The Threxian ships began a fighting retreat, drawing the Morveth fleet deeper into the gravity well. The Morveth, confident in their superior numbers, pursued aggressively. Then the orbital defense platforms that had appeared dormant suddenly activated, but these were not standard defense platforms anymore. Human engineers had spent 2 months retrofitting them with new targeting systems and tactics. They did not fire at the Morvith ships directly. Instead, they targeted the space between ships, creating overlapping fields of fire that forced the Morvith fleet to break formation. They are using the platforms as area denial weapons, Cross's tactical officer reported with growing alarm. Sir, we are taking heavy casualties. Our formation is collapsing. At the second target world, the story was similar. The Morvith fleet arrived to find the defending forces had evacuated the orbital space entirely. Confused but pleased by the apparent cowardice, the Morvith fleet moved in to begin planetary bombardment. That was when the Threxian ships emerged from behind the planet's moon, where they had been hiding. The Morvith fleet, spread out for bombardment operations, was completely unprepared for a concentrated attack on their flanks. The human-trained Threxian forces struck like a hammer. They focused all their firepower on the Morvath command ships, destroying or crippling them in the first 30 seconds of combat. Without command coordination and with their communications suffering mysterious glitches, the Morvith fleet fell into chaos. At the third target world, Specialist Minho was having the time of his life. The human demolitions expert had spent weeks training Threxian engineers in the art of creative destruction. Now, as the Morvith fleet entered orbit, they triggered their surprise. The orbital shipyards that the Morvith had intended to capture suddenly exploded. But these were not simple demolitions. The explosions were carefully timed and positioned to create a massive debris field that spread across the Morvith fleet's approach vector. Ships took damage from high-velocity metal fragments. Sensors were blinded. Navigation became a nightmare. Who taught them this? A Morvith captain screamed as debris tore through his ship's hull. In his flagship, General Cross watched all 3 battles deteriorate simultaneously. This was impossible. The Threxians were not this smart. They were not this tactical. They fought with honor and tradition, not with tricks and deception. Sir, his intelligence officer said quietly, we are receiving reports of human involvement. Small numbers, but they appear to be training and advising Threxian forces. Cross felt ice form in his veins. Humans, he had heard the stories but dismissed them as exaggerations. How much damage could one species really do? He was about to find out. All fleets fall back to Rally Point Gamma, he ordered. We regroup and reassess. But falling back proved harder than attacking. The Threxian forces, emboldened by their success, pursued aggressively. They had learned from their human teachers that a retreating enemy is vulnerable. They struck at the Morvith rear guard, destroying supply ships and capturing damaged vessels. Commander Sujin, the human naval warfare specialist, watched from a Threxian destroyer as the Morvath fleet limped away. "Good," she said to the Threxian captain beside her. "You are learning to be aggressive when your enemy is weak. But do not pursue too far. Let them run. They will tell stories about today, and stories breed fear." The three battles ended within hours of each other. The Morvith, who had come expecting easy victories, had suffered their worst defeats in decades. They had lost 47 ships destroyed and another 33 damaged. Thousands of soldiers were dead or captured. And they had achieved exactly none of their objectives. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The Threxian Empire, which everyone expected to fall, had somehow turned the tide. Rumors about human involvement spread even faster. In the Galactic Council chambers, emergency meetings were called. Ambassador Hyensu found himself summoned to explain Earth's actions. "We are aware of what is happening," Prime Counselor Drath said coldly. "Directive 447 has been violated. What does Earth have to say?" Hyensu had prepared for this moment. Captain Ji-won and her team are private citizens on authorized leave. Earth cannot control what its citizens do in their personal time. "A convenient fiction," Velthor observed. "But the damage is done. The galaxy is watching what 500 humans can accomplish in just a few months. Other species will want to hire them now. The very situation we hope to prevent is unfolding." Hyensu had no response to that. Velthor was right. Earth's government had known exactly what would happen when they granted those military personnel leave to take private contracts. They had simply decided the price was worth it on Threxia Prime. Empress Kira held a victory celebration, but the mood was tempered by reality. They had won a battle, not the war. The Morvith still outnumbered them. The enemy would adapt and return. Captain Jiwan stood apart from the celebration, studying new intelligence reports. General Cross was regrouping his forces. More importantly, he was requesting reinforcements from the Morvith homeworlds. The enemy was not giving up. They were escalating. Lieutenant Taiyang approached her captain quietly. "What do you think he will do?" "He will try to crush us before we can teach the Threxians any more tricks," Jiwan said. "He will bring overwhelming force. And if that does not work, he will probably do something desperate." "Like what?" Jiwan's expression darkened. "Like targeting civilian populations to draw us out? Humans are not the only species capable of cruelty. We just tend to be better at it when we try." The warning proved prophetic. 1 week later, the Morvith struck at a lightly defended Threxian colony world. They did not try to conquer it. They simply destroyed it from orbit, killing 3 million civilians in a matter of hours. The message was clear. The Morvith wanted the humans to know that this war was about to become very ugly. They had no idea how badly they had miscalculated. Killing civilians did not intimidate humans. It made them angry. And angry humans were the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Captain Jiwan stood in front of the holographic display showing the destroyed colony world. 3 million dead. She had seen the recordings. Orbital bombardment had turned cities into glass. There had been no military targets on that world. Just civilians living their lives. Lieutenant Tiang stood beside her, his fists clenched. "They did this to provoke us." "Yes," Jiwan said quietly. "And it worked." She turned to face Empress Kira, who looked like she had aged 10 years in the past day. "Your Majesty, I need to contact Earth Command. What the Morvath just did changed everything. This is no longer just a war. This is genocide. And humanity has strong feelings about genocide." Kira nodded weakly. "Do what you must." The encrypted communication reached Earth within hours. Captain Jiwan's report was clear and factual, but Ambassador Hyensu could hear the cold rage beneath her professional tone. He had served with soldiers like her. They were the most dangerous kind because they kept their emotions locked down until it was time to act. Earth Command's response came within 24 hours. Admiral Bowman would deploy with a full battle group, 5,000 additional soldiers, naval vessels with weapons the galaxy had never seen. The authorization came with only one instruction: end this war. Ambassador Hyunsu tried to object during the emergency council meeting. Sending more forces will only make things worse. The galaxy already fears human military capability. The galaxy should fear what happens when humans get angry, the Earth Command representative replied. The Morvath committed genocide. We will not ignore that. Directive 447 be damned. The Galactic Council erupted in chaos. Some members supported Earth's position, arguing that genocide demanded response. Others feared what would happen if humanity deployed its full military might. Prime Councilor Drath tried to maintain order, but even his authority could not contain the storm. Velthor, the ancient historian, simply watched in silence. This was exactly what the directive had been designed to prevent. But now it was too late. The humans were coming, and they were not coming to advise anymore. Major Deho arrived with the first wave of reinforcements. He was a specialist in psychological operations with a reputation that made even other humans uncomfortable. Where Captain Yuan fought with tactics and strategy, Major Deho fought with fear. The Morvath wanted to intimidate us by killing civilians, he said during his first briefing with Jiwan and the Threxian command staff. That was a mistake. Now we will show them what real intimidation looks like. I call it Operation Phantom. The operation began subtly. Human cyber warfare specialists infiltrated Morvath communication networks more deeply than before. They did not just introduce errors now. They started planting messages, fake orders, false intelligence reports. Soldiers reported seeing things that were not there. Supply officers received contradictory instructions, but the real genius of Operation Phantom was psychological. Major Deho had studied Morvath culture extensively. He knew what they feared. He knew their superstitions. He knew that Morvath soldiers believed that dying far from home meant their spirits could never rest. So he made sure every Morvath soldier knew exactly how far from home they were going to die. We are intercepting and modifying their personal communications, Major Deho explained to a horrified Empress. Kira, when a Morvath soldier sends a message to his family, we add a small postscript. Just a few words. Reminders about how far they are from home. Suggestions that they might not return. Nothing direct. Nothing obvious. Just enough to plant doubt. That is cruel, General Vex said quietly. Yes, Deho agreed without shame. War is cruel. They killed 3 million of your civilians. I will make their soldiers afraid to sleep at night. That is mercy compared to what they deserve. The psychological campaign worked faster than anyone expected. Within 2 weeks, Morvath military efficiency dropped by 15%. Soldiers hesitated before following orders. Officers questioned intelligence reports. The entire military machine began to doubt itself. General Cross recognized what was happening, but he could not stop it. How do you fight an enemy that attacks your mind instead of your body? He tried executing officers for cowardice, but that only made the fear worse. He tried communication blackouts, but that left his forces unable to coordinate. In desperation, he decided to strike back at the humans directly. If he could eliminate the human advisors, maybe the Threxian forces would return to their old, predictable tactics. He sent his best Special Forces Team 2. Infiltrate Threxia Prime and assassinate Captain Jiwan. The team made it within 500 meters of Jiwan's quarters before Lieutenant Taiyang's. Security forces eliminated them. The Morvath had forgotten that humans had been fighting guerrilla warfare and counterinsurgency for thousands of years. Catching them by surprise was nearly impossible. The assassination attempt gave Jiwan the justification she needed for the next phase. They brought the war to our doorstep, she told Admiral Bowman, who had just arrived with the Terran Naval Battle Group. Now we take it to theirs. Admiral Bowman smiled. He had spent 20 years commanding submarines on Earth, learning to hunt enemies who could not see him coming. Space warfare was just submarine warfare with an extra dimension. I have been reviewing Morvith naval doctrine, Bowman said. They rely heavily on sensor networks and communication relays. Their ships are powerful, but not very independent. If we can disrupt their command structure, their fleet becomes a collection of individual ships instead of a coordinated force. Can you do it? Empress Kira asked. Your Majesty, Bowman replied, human naval doctrine has one core principle: attack where the enemy is not looking, and hit what they cannot afford to lose. We will strike deep into Morvith territory. We will destroy their infrastructure. And we will do it before they even know we are there. The operation launched 3 days later. Human ships, equipped with stealth technology that made them almost invisible to Morvith sensors, penetrated deep into enemy space. They did not target military bases or fleet concentrations. Instead, they targeted communication relays, supply depots, and manufacturing facilities. The Morvith economy began to collapse. Food shipments did not arrive. Replacement parts for ships went missing. Factory workers showed up to find their facilities destroyed overnight. And always, there were no warnings. The humans struck and vanished like ghosts. General Cross watched his empire crumble and realized he had made a terrible mistake. Fighting the Threxians had been difficult but straightforward. Fighting humans was like fighting shadows. They were everywhere and nowhere. They attacked targets he did not even know were important until they were gone. He made one final decision. If he could not defeat the humans militarily, he would capture one and learn their secrets. His intelligence service identified Lieutenant Taiyang as a high-value target who frequently operated outside secured areas. The trap was elaborate. False intelligence suggested that a Morvith general was willing to defect. The meeting location was isolated. Taiyang, despite her caution, fell for it because the intelligence seemed too good to ignore. She realized the trap 3 seconds before it closed. 3 seconds was enough. The Morveth capture team found themselves facing a human who had spent 15 years training in close-quarters combat. By the time reinforcements arrived, 4 Morveth soldiers were dead and Taiyang was gone. Escaped into the night, but General Cross got his consolation prize. The attempted capture had forced Taiyang to reveal some of her escape tactics. He analyzed the recordings frame by frame, studying how she moved, how she fought, how she thought. What he saw terrified him. She had not panicked. She had not hesitated. The moment she realized the trap, she had become something else. A predator. Every movement was efficient. Every strike was lethal. She had killed 4 trained soldiers in under 20 seconds and made it look effortless. Cross finally understood what the Galactic Council had tried to warn everyone about. Humans were not just good at war. They were engineered for it by thousands of years of constant conflict. They had evolved to be the most effective killers in the galaxy. And they had done it while still maintaining enough empathy to care about genocide. That combination made them unstoppable. He sent a communication to the Morvith High Command. We cannot win this war. The humans will destroy us if we continue. I recommend immediate surrender negotiations. The High Command refused. Pride demanded that they fight on. Resources were allocated for one final massive offensive. They would gather every available ship and launch an overwhelming attack on Threxia Prime itself. If they could not win a war of attrition, they would win with brute force. It was exactly what Captain Jawan had been waiting for. When your enemy commits everything to a single battle, she told Empress Kira, that is when you have already won. Because if they lose that battle, they have nothing left. The final confrontation was approaching. The Morveth were gathering their strength for one desperate strike, and the humans were preparing to teach the galaxy a final lesson about what happens when you make humanity angry. The Morveth Final Offensive Fleet was the largest military force assembled in the sector in over 200 years. 347 warships carrying over 2 million soldiers. Every vessel the Morveth Collective could spare had been pulled from defensive positions across their territory. General Cross commanded from his flagship, knowing this was his last chance to salvage victory from disaster. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "We can begin the jump to Threxia Prime on your order." Cross took a deep breath. Everything depended on this. The humans had been harassing Morvath's supply lines and infrastructure for weeks, but they had not faced a concentrated fleet this size. Superior numbers would win. They had to. "Begin the jump," he ordered. The fleet materialized in Threxian space and immediately knew something was wrong. The defense fleet they expected to fight through was not there. In fact, very few Threxian ships were visible at all. "Where are they?" Cross demanded. "Sir, we are detecting multiple signals throughout the system," his sensor officer reported. "The Threxian fleet is dispersed across a dozen different locations. They are not concentrating their forces." Captain Jiwan watched from the command center as the Morvath fleet spread out, trying to engage multiple small Threxian formations simultaneously. "They still do not understand," she said quietly. "Admiral Bowman, you are authorized to begin." "With pleasure." "Captain," Bowman replied from his flagship. Hidden on the far side of Threxia's moon, the human battle group had been waiting in silent running mode for 3 days. Their stealth systems made them invisible to Morvath sensors. Now, with the enemy fleet committed and dispersed, they struck. Human warships emerged from hiding and hit the Morvath formation from behind. But they did not attack the warships. Instead, they targeted the supply vessels, the troop transports, and the command ships that coordinated fleet movements. "They are attacking our support structure," Cross's tactical officer shouted. "Sir, we are losing coordination." The Threxian formations that had appeared scattered suddenly coordinated perfectly, converging on isolated Morvath groups. The human instructors had taught them well. Do not fight the enemy's strength. Divide them. Isolate them. Destroy them piece by piece. The battle that the Morvath expected to be a glorious final offensive turned into a nightmare of confused skirmishes and failing communications. Morvath ships found themselves cut off from support, surrounded by enemies who seemed to know exactly where they would be. Specialist Minho had prepared one final surprise. As the Morvath fleet struggled to maintain formation, hidden mines that human engineers had placed throughout the system weeks earlier activated. They did not cause massive damage, but they did not need to. They just needed to create more chaos, more confusion, more fear. The psychological warfare continued throughout the battle. Major Deho's team broadcast messages on Morvath military frequencies. Some messages contained fake orders. Others simply played recordings of Morvath soldiers crying for help. The goal was not to deceive, but to break morale. It worked. Individual Morvath ships began to retreat without orders. Some captains stopped responding to command entirely. The massive fleet started to fragment. General Cross watched his grand offensive fall apart and knew the war was lost. "All ships, fall back. Retreat to home territory. This is over." But Lieutenant Taiyang had one more mission to complete. Her team infiltrated Cross's flagship during the confusion of battle. They moved through the ship like shadows, neutralizing guards and avoiding sensors. Within 30 minutes, they reached the command bridge. Cross turned to find a human woman pointing a weapon at him. Behind her stood 6 more humans, each positioned to cover a different section of the bridge. "General Cross," Taiyang said calmly, "you are under arrest for war crimes. The murder of 3 million Threxian civilians. You will stand trial." Cross could have ordered his bridge crew to fight. They would have died trying to protect him. Instead, he simply raised his hands in surrender. He was tired. Tired of fighting shadows. Tired of making decisions that killed his own people. Tired of a war he should never have started. The Battle of Threxia Prime ended 8 hours after it began. The Morvath lost 132 ships destroyed and another 74 captured. The rest fled in disorder. Threxian casualties were minimal by comparison. News of the defeat spread across the Morvath collective within hours. Without their fleet and with their infrastructure crippled by weeks of human raids, the Morvath government saw no path to victory. They sued for peace within 3 days. Captain Jiwan negotiated the surrender terms personally. To the surprise of many, the terms were fair. The Morvath would return all conquered Threxian territory. They would pay reparations for civilian deaths. General Cross and other commanders responsible for war crimes would stand trial. But the Morvath collective itself would not be destroyed or occupied. Why are you being merciful? Empress Kira asked Jiwan privately. After what they did? Because the goal of war is peace, Jiwan replied. If we destroy them completely, someone else will have to fight their remnants for decades. Better to leave them weakened but intact, with leaders who remember what happens when you make humans angry. The war that was supposed to end with Threxian extinction instead ended in complete Morvath defeat. 8 months. That was how long it took for 500 humans to turn the tide, and 5,000 humans to end it completely. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was filled to capacity. Every species wanted to hear what would be said about the humans and their involvement in the war. Veltha, the ancient historian, addressed the assembly. I have prepared a comprehensive analysis of human warfare doctrine. I have studied their history, their tactics, their strategies. What I found has profound implications for our galactic community. The holographic displays showed images from human history. Battles fought with stone weapons. Wars involving millions of soldiers. Conflicts that consumed entire continents. And always constant innovation. Constant adaptation. Constant improvement in the art of killing. Humans have been at war for their entire existence as a species, Velther continued. They have developed over 6,000 distinct military strategies. They have written thousands of books analyzing warfare. They teach military history to their children. They study their defeats more carefully than their victories because they want to learn from every mistake. The chamber listened in stunned silence as Velther detailed the depth of human military knowledge. It was not just that humans were good at war. They had turned warfare into a science, an art, and a philosophy all at once. Most species fight wars when necessary, Velther concluded. Humans prepare for war constantly, even in times of peace. That is why 500 of them could change the course of a galactic conflict. That is why we must never, ever involve them in our wars. Ambassador Hyansu was called to address the council. He had prepared remarks defending Earth's actions, but standing before the assembly of galactic species, he decided to speak from the heart instead. You are right to fear us, he said quietly. I have read the reports. I have seen what my people accomplished in this war, and it frightens me too. Humans are very good at violence because we have practiced it for so long. But here is what you need to understand. We are also very good at compassion. We are very good at building. We are very good at peace. The same drive that makes us effective warriors also makes us effective healers, teachers, and friends. He paused, looking around the chamber. Captain Yuan could have destroyed the Morvath completely. Instead, she negotiated fair terms. Lieutenant Taeyang could have killed General Cross. Instead, she arrested him for trial. We are capable of terrible violence, yes. But we choose mercy when we can. We choose peace when possible. We only unleash our full capacity for war when we see evil that must be stopped. Prime Counselor Drath stood. Earth's words are noted. However, actions have consequences. The Council votes now on Directive 448. The new directive was even more strict than the previous one. Any species that recruited humans for military purposes would face immediate expulsion from the Council and complete economic isolation. Earth itself would face sanctions if it allowed its citizens to participate in galactic conflicts without explicit Council approval, but there was also a new offer. The Council invited Earth to contribute forces to the Galactic Peacekeeping Force. Humans could use their military skills to maintain peace rather than fight wars. Hyansu considered the offer carefully. Then he made a counteroffer. Earth will contribute peacekeeping forces on one condition. We decide when and how we fight. We will not be ordered to ignore genocide. We will not be told to stand aside when civilians are murdered. If you can accept that humanity has moral limits we will not cross, then we will help keep the peace. The council debated for 3 hours. Finally, they accepted Earth's terms. Humans would join the peacekeeping force, but with unprecedented autonomy in deciding when to deploy. On Threxia Prime, a medal ceremony was held. Empress Kira personally awarded honors to Captain Zhuan, Lieutenant Taiyang, Admiral Bowman, and every human who had fought for her empire. There were tears. There were speeches. There was gratitude that would last for generations.